Okay, good evening. How is everyone doing tonight? So I had a quick question so that we can begin. And the question is, who's consciously here? Raise your hands. Okay. So everyone but my friend Rami, okay. Subconsciously though, who's here? Trick question, because we don't know, right? And a lot of what we're going to be talking about today is about stress. And I'm going to add another term, anxiety, because that's really the one that we should focus on addressing. No one is really immune here to the pressures of life, right? We all feel it at all times. So stress is something that happens to everyone at any given time. Unfortunately, anxiety is something that happens to not everyone at any given time. It's something that's really built up in our brain due to the way our brain communicates. I don't want to get too much into the science. We can talk a little bit about that later with our amazing panel. But I do want to talk about how the brain works. The brain works in metaphors. And the way our senses communicates to the brain, it's allowing us to understand that stress is a good thing. We have evolution to thank stress for. The reason we make cortisol and all other kinds of neurotransmitters in our brain is so that we can survive. So I want you to put stress into the category of real. It's reality. Stress is imminent threat, imminent fear, anything that's actually existing that your senses are reminding your brain to freak out. Anxiety, on the other hand, is not real. It's almost like a UFO, right? A UFO, unidentified flying object. Is it real? Is it not? We don't know, but we think there's something. Anxiety is like that. It's like unidentified stress perception. And when the brain can't validate through our senses that it's actually real, it suffers from anxiety. This state or stagnation between the communication of the brain, in particular the amygdala, right inside in the middle of the brain, communicating with our consciousness, right? Back to who's here consciously. There's a break in communication. Suddenly we are feeling the effects of stress, which we know adrenaline increases, we know our heart rate increases, and much more damaging things than that. The difference is with stress, that little bit of anxiety, if you will, that little bit of a demonstration, physical feeling of the actual stress, it's good. When we've done studies on both animals and humans, we really notice that stress leads to other emotions, not just fear and anxiety, etc. It also leads to compassion, to happiness, to pleasure. So stress is a good thing. Anxiety is not. Who here has driven through a traffic light and doesn't remember if it's red or green or yellow or whatever color it was, right? It's the same thing with, what did I have to do? Did I do it? I'm not sure. You placed it. Life happens a lot in the subconscious. And what do I mean by that? Up to 90% of everything we do at any given moment, it's subconsciously happening. So our brain isn't actively or consciously addressing every movement, every breath, every single function it's doing at that moment. We have an amazing panel tonight where we get to dive into the science, the technology, and most importantly, the people-driven efforts that can help address mental illness and mental health. When we talk about stress, I can't repeat this enough, but stress is positive. Stress is a very good thing. It's why we survive. The difference is when we have stress, real stress, it's short-term, it's momentary. When we have long-term stress, that's what's anxiety. And when we're looking at the effects normal, real stress has on our body, it's okay for the body to deal with that for a few minutes. But over a long period of time, it's impacting our sleep. It's impacting how our organs function. It's actually changing our DNA, changing the biochemistry in our brain, changing the way we relate to whatever problem is real and then translate to whatever problems are just in our mind. A lot of us have been told, you overanalyze, you overthink. Yes, that's anxiety. So to give you another example, on my way here, I was getting ready with my friend Annabelle, and I was anxious. Oh my God, I have to speak tonight. I just arrived yesterday, 9-hour flight. I have to do this, do that. Well, there was no real stress. We were almost late because of an Uber. So that was real stress. That was physical. That happened there. let's not get confused or get carried away or empower anxiety. Let's learn to really separate our definitions and even the way we communicate when we're stressed or when we're anxious. This is the first step we have in actually being aware and mindful that what we're stressing about isn't really physically there for us to stress about. So what's the point? We have the opportunity to not only change other people's minds, but most importantly, our own. And little by little, it just starts with definitions. Back to our brain, it's lazy. So it makes connections, expressways, if you will. This is called neural binding. So when you think of a memory, typically, it's not a perfectly reconstruction of that memory. It's like little expressways of other random things that make you associate something with something else. Has anyone called here someone by the wrong name and you know, they've given you their name 15 million times and you still call them by another name? You're not the only one. The brain works that way. And we have an amazing panel today with Mr. Tom Middleton. So please give an applause for Tom. This is like the third or fourth stage we've shared, so we get to have the opportunity and privilege to work a lot together. But Tom is a sound architect, and I'll let him tell us what he does, because only you can really put it and make it amazing. So thank you guys so much. Tom.
Thank you, Ari Peralta, on transformation of stress. I mean, who knew, really, that actually stress is a good thing? And from meeting Ari, I'm learning so much about this metric that we know nothing about, really. You can't actually put a number on stress. But isn't it interesting that stress and pleasure are on the same spectrum?
Two sides of the same coin.
Fascinating. So I'm a sound architect. I work in a multidisciplinary world of neuromusicology and psychoacoustics. So I'm fascinated with how sound affects us cognitively, physiologically, behaviorally, emotionally, spiritually even. What is it that sound can do to us to improve our mental and physical health and well-being? And how can I learn more about it? So coming from a background as a classically trained pianist and cellist, playing in an orchestra, getting into electronic music in the early 90s, I've discovered the Aphex Twin, fell in love with this incredible electronic music movement, accidentally became a DJ, toured the planet, played in 49 countries, and realized that I've actually impacted millions of people just playing music and sharing music. And I've always had this thought that perhaps my way of sharing music was slightly more mindful, because I was just always thinking, is this music that I'm playing, is it actually delivering something meaningful? Am I giving people a journey that's actually healthy? Is this music healthy? What am I doing with this sound? You know, you're in an incredibly potent and powerful position of responsibility as a DJ. You're up there on stage, there's 100,000 people in front of you. What am I going to play now that literally uplifts them, gives them energy, makes them feel good? Do I want to take them down or take them up? Where do I want to go with this? This modulation of state, mood, energy, momentum, keeping people's stamina going. And yes, okay, they might be helping themselves along with other things, inverted commas, but ultimately, I've been soundtracking these mind states and journeys around the planet and watching, observing, using my empirical research, if you like, to formulate new ways of creating content that I feel is a bit more meaningful, a bit more useful for us, and thinking about fundamental human problems like stress, anxiety, depression, pain management, and the flip side, productivity enhancement. Can we be better human beings by soundtracking our lives with music soundscapes that actually flip us into a more productive mode, make us more, give us better retention, improve our cognition? So healthcare, education, beyond just music for entertainment, I've been absolutely fascinated with how sound and music and creating what I call life tracks or soundscapes to life, can they be more powerful, meaningful? And at the moment, I'm in this incredible world, really privileged to meet individuals like Ari and his team at Arigami, a cross-modal research facility, bringing together the leading lights and talents in unisensory disciplines to help people like me and StateOnDemand, Peter and James, to have better information to make better decisions about the content that we make to help improve people's lives. And the reason we're here talking about it today is obviously mental health is a big thing. Burnout, anxiety, workplace. Can we become more resilient as a species? And I totally believe that we can, using a variety of multisensory interventions, non-pharmacological but multisensory. Can we use light, the frequencies of light, color? Can we use scent, which is also a vibrational frequency, another wavelength? Can we use that in the context of a soundscape, pull them all together? Well, at this moment in time, we don't really know. There's not enough evidence to really support that, but there's some incredible work going on, and the likes of Arigami are giving us access to this incredible new world of cross-modal multisensory research in order to create experience like this tonight. So we're experimenting. I'm going to hand over now to...
Well, we constantly talk about unfolding. And I think with the senses, we're unfolding the senses, but I think we have two other panel members who are also unfolding in different ways. And it's State on Demand. And thank you, Peter and James, for being here. And I guess, Peter, we'll start with you, but what's going on with State on Demand? Tell us a little bit more about neurotropics and how you guys are approaching mental health.
Well, thanks. It's a pleasure, really, to be here. So my name is Peter. I'm a co-founder and biohacker at State on Demand. And at State on Demand, we are all about helping everyone achieve the states on tap, any state you suffer or want to be in. And we do this by three things. One is we use nootropics and nutrients, brain nutrients, and you could call it nutrition, basically. And we use immersive content, which is a mix of audio-visual environment in, let's say, virtual reality, and then using some audio binaural beats, and you probably heard of. And then we have a loop as a third ingredient of the magic, which basically we use biosensors to track the real-time data of your heart, brain waves, and then try to, in real time, change the environment so you can kind of flow into the states quite smoothly. And we're all about that, basically.
One of my responsibilities, James, pleased to meet you all, thank you for coming, is the alchemist, if you like, and that's to achieve the state of mind and the multisensory way in which we try to allow the touch is we provide you with nootropics, and primarily from a CBD perspective, we know that people who take CBD and the various different botanicals that we use, that they report, whether it's placebo or whether it's something that's scientific based, they're reporting and feeding back to us that there is a big difference. Some people who can't face the world all of a sudden can. Some people who have no motivation and walk past that pile of clothes in the corner that's been there for a month, all of a sudden they find themselves motivated to clean the house. So what we do is, yeah, I think we can all relate to something like that. What we do is that we take some of the nootropics, and as Peter referred as perhaps nutrition, and then we introduce certain botanicals, and it's just botanicals, to allow you to achieve the state of mind that you're going for. And we have brought some with us tonight, and I'll just give you an example. One of the things we bought are gummy bears. And if you look around the room, everyone's smiling, and you haven't even had them yet. Crazy, isn't it? Gummy bears make people smile. I don't know why, but it does. Every time we say gummy bears, people are like, oh, gummy bears, and it gives you that happy. So we're going to give them out, and we've got some oils, and we've got some products tonight that are going to make you feel good, and some are going to make you relax. So, for example, we've got some chill pills. We've got some chamomile tea with some hemp flower, some CBD-rich hemp flower that we farm. So there are products. We've got some menthol and menthol eucalyptus sprays. So we're going to spray with your fingers.
Is it real stress or is it anxiety? Think about it.
It's just technical.
We're going to invite you to spray into your hands and then just rub it into your face. Rub it on some muscles, you'll feel relaxed. There's wintergreen and there's pine, and there's all this good stuff in there that's going to really smell nice and make you feel good about things. We've got some valerian, that'll later on, or you may want to come in here and just chill. So, and then we've got some wild orange, some citrus. It's going to be uplifting. We've got some avocado and some rosemary and clary sage. And essentially, we're going to try to help you achieve different states of mind by using these nootropics and botanicals. Okay, so I'm going to hand back over to Ari for a moment, and I'm just going to give you some products, and you can all just share as we're talking, okay? So I'm going to hand out some goodies.
We like goodies. So, one of the interesting things James just mentioned, especially with the brain and the brain chemistry, is back to the association. When he mentioned gummy bears, it's because we have a neural pathway that's been built to give us kind of a happy memory when somebody says gummy bears. The same thing when he said something smells nice. What does that mean, something smelling nice? It's really our neural pathway that when someone is nice or kind, we like that. That is that connection the brain makes. The brain accelerates that process. Peter, you mentioned biometrics. And I think biometrics is huge because it's changing everything we do. And it's allowing us to really understand the other layers of what it takes to be human. That 90% or so that's subconscious. And I know Tom and I get to work a lot with biometrics, trying to connect it with the senses. But what connections are you making with the subconscious and with biometrics on feeling good or feeling happy?
Well, you guys are doing a fantastic job, what I can see from the studies you've published so far. So from our side, we try to tackle to basically unlock those brain receptors that would lock your memory in. If you have like a memory that you are anxious of, or you have stress in certain environments or colors, basically. And we do this with nootropics, with certain brain nutrients that would just kind of pour the snow on your brain, and then we would bring you to a hyper-awareness stage with audiovisual enhancement. It's basically cognitive and emotive enhancement in both. And when we do scan the brains, we usually use those quite popular Choose Muse. You probably all heard of Muse. It's like an EEG device that you can buy online for only £200 or so. And with that, you can see how our brain waves change, and potentially how you could, let's say, go to one state to another and actually have an intrinsic data that you can see. For example, I meditate for over a decade, and I know it works for me, but other people don't have like a validation that it works. With this brainwaves data, you can actually see that this is helping you a lot, and you have reduced the stress or whatever you're suffering from. So I believe that biofeedback is an amazing thing, and it's amazing that it's available to everyone. And I think that's like a global rise of the consciousness on the planet is like the second summer of love, and everything is kind of coming together. I guess it comes together also sadly with global warming and our kind of last countdowns. But I think we're just, as a whole humanity, we're trying to get our consciousness to that level that we can measure it and then improve it in real time. And I'm super grateful for the technology that allows us that.
Tom, you obviously work with biometrics, and each day you're trying to connect more and more elements of within the body and within the mind with how to elevate that state. Tell us more about how you're taking sound from a unisensory modality to really almost a sensory field. Tell us more about Tom's world.
Thank you. So I'll just give you a little example. Utilizing the gadgets that we have on either attached to our wrists, fitness tracking, even a phone, we have an ability to, let's say, have a deep dive inside simple stuff like heart rate, temperature, geolocation. All these things can actually feed into a very interesting way of processing and personalizing a sonic experience, if you like. And initially, one of the things that I wanted to do was work with this combination of breath work and sound, a company called Silent Mode. And we use this technique called breathonics. So literally in training your brain and your body to slow down or speed up literally by listening to sounds and frequencies with a cue to either accelerate or decelerate your heart rate through literally just breathing. Quite a simple thing. And we did Ari, myself, did a panel and a live experiment at Ravensbourne University back in March. And in real time, we showed resting heart rate going down after breathing in time to this particular kind of music in an ambisonic environment. And we watched as the heart rate came down. It takes about 3 to 5 minutes for the entrainment process to kick in. And then we exposed the guy that was wired up to another type of content that accelerated breath rate, heart rate, inducing a sort of state of hyperarousal. And so by modulating between sort of sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, those responses, we were able to show that literally within the state of about 5-10 minutes, you'd gone from totally relaxed to super excited and energized. And if you sort of think about the potential of where we can go with this ability to change state, as you say, on demand, I think we're in a very powerful point where I'm going to borrow one of Ari's terms, sensory menu. Where do you want to go on the menu today? Oh, well, I'd like to go up, I'd like to go down, sideways, horizontal, vertical, where do you want to go with this? We're at a very interesting point where we can literally have a very a hyper-personalized energy, mood, state delivered to us almost instantaneously. And then using the instant data feedback loop from some of the wearables that we have, it can also anticipate. So now think about things such as how Apple is using the healthcare, the ability to predict the possibility of myocardial infarction, heart problems before it's even happened, because that data is actually feeding into a system that machine learning that's going on behind the scenes is ultimately profiling and helping to support your physical and mental health. So early days at the moment, but I'm really excited to be creating content that sort of feeds into this and supports that layer of mental and physical health and well-being. And obviously, as the technology increases with power and reduces in size, I'm kind of excited about being able to awaken in the right state of mind at the right point in my sleep architecture. One of the other things I've done is trained as a sleep science coach. I don't know if any of you saw the Nick Littlehale's talk on sleep. He's a top chap. Sleep for me is everything. I mean, it's the fundamental pillar of all health, mental and physical well-being, and all of the current research points to that. If you get your sleep right, everything's going to be fine. Hence why later on I'll be playing some of my psychoacoustic sleep soundscapes, and maybe you'll fall asleep, but that's probably not really what I want to do this evening, so I might play some other types of soundscapes that aren't too sleepy. But yeah, different mind states and mood states can be influenced by the tempo, even the key and the tuning systems that are used within the music. So exploring non-standard tunings. We currently use 440 hertz as concert pitch A, but actually you can tune up and tune down in sense between that and other tuning systems that potentially could be more harmonically balanced with even our bodies on a cellular level, using some ancient Pythagorean and Fibonacci sequence magic tuned down, and suddenly, does that feel better? Is that actually resonating more harmoniously with our bodies? Using such techniques as cymatics, you can view frequencies, you can look at what's going on an atomic level, particularly things like water, and even view beautiful sacred geometrical shapes and forms that only align with certain tuning systems. Now, these shapes and forms that we see in nature, if they're replicated via the physical visualization of sound and frequency, I'm pretty sure there's some things to explore there, and I'm sure Ari and his team will be able to help me with that.
Well, I think for us, we really truly define technology as anything that allows us to understand our biology better. Anything that allows us to unfold life better, that's true technology. Everything else is just an instrument. And when we're looking at sound, as a sensory modality, and we compare that to light and color and everything else we've learned as a frequency or wavelength, the more we're getting into quantum biology, the more we're getting into biochemistry and really subatomic particles, we're understanding a whole nother world. Just like when Galileo built his telescope and showed us really more of the world and the universe that we live in, we're now just peeking inside. And a lot is going on. And when Tom was talking about the sympathetic system and how the brain regulates our emotions, our heart rate, and some of the other biometrics that we measure, that's all happening through electrical expressions in the brain. So there are wavelengths and frequencies happening there, communicating, and that kind of communication is something that we can bypass. And I think that's where I'm not a huge fan of the word biohacking, because I think people have a double-noted, I think, identity with that word. But I do think that we're trying to improve that bypass. We're trying to improve whatever patterns are negative. How can we enhance that? How can we use sound? How can we use other frequencies, including smell, and really help the brain realize what is real, stress, and what is not, anxiety? I think something else that really brings us all together here is this topic, obviously, of mental health, which is not a topic. It's something that affects and impacts anyone and everyone at different moments in our lives, or sometimes multiple times a day. But it's not just mental health that's having an issue here. Those aren't just the grim statistics. Unfortunately, we're seeing the same kind of alarming statistics with sleep deprivation, something that Tom mentioned as well. But also with all kinds of different diabetic concerns and issues with food intake, etc. All of these things are the same thing. We're just categorizing it differently. So it's going to take a team of innovators, of entrepreneurs, of people who come from one field and really are training or learning about another field. And it's not just us as quote-unquote experts that get to talk about this. You'll discover this on your own. These things are all interlocked and interconnected. The more we use the technologies that we're partnering with to really unravel and unfold the human being and human nature, the better we're understanding how they're connected. But when we don't sleep, so much happens. And I know you're a sleep coach, correct?
Bad stuff happens.
Can you walk us through some of what's happening in the body?
Oh, good grief. It's, I mean, did Nick go through the bad stuff with you? I don't know if he did. Normally Nick kind of goes through this is what you have to do to sleep better, very quickly. And I love his presentations. I would say that you want to be looking at literally every part of your mental and physical well-being are impacted negatively if you have suboptimal sleep. Below the threshold of 5 complete circadian cycles, which is 7.5 hours. That's the benchmark. People talk about 8 hours, but you're probably including the 20-minute window of sleep onset. So 8 hours is normally talked about, but actually 5 complete 90-minute cycles is 7.5 hours. And that is your kind of sleep architecture that we're talking about here, going through the different sleep stages. Your body needs to get into deep delta wave, the lowest level, if you like, within your sleep, in order for it to repair, recover, and even do a thing called a brain flush detox. The brain plaque, which builds up and can impact disease like Alzheimer's and dementia, if your body doesn't have an opportunity to get rid of it, to metabolize and excrete it, you will have this possibility of mental health problems later on. So sleep, even the problems we have now, we say we've got enough sleep, but did we have quality sleep? Did we get into that deep delta wave mode to actually deliver what we really need to get the best quality of sleep? Unlikely. It's a bit loud out there.
And we think anxiety is driving this. You know, when you're anxious, again, you're producing all this energy in the brain that otherwise that energy would be going into your sleep processing. Otherwise, that energy would be going into your digestive system and other systems within the body that are being neglected because the fake stress or anxiety is taking over and taking over most of your processes. James, I know you are Mr. CBD. And at Arigami, we don't endorse anything. We like to test it. We like to research it. But I want to know more about why the fascination with CBD. What are some of the benefits you're seeing experienced by your customers?
I first was involved in CBD about 3 or 4 years ago, and we had some gummy bears, funny enough, and people were coming in and asking what they can do, and some people were coming in with anxiety. So these 3 guys come in, and they were completely unrelated, and they started to take some gummy bears from us. And within about 7 to 10 days, each one of them come back completely separately and said, "This has changed my life, completely changed my life. We now sleep properly, go to bed, wake up in the morning energized, and they have no more concerns, no more worries, and they believe that they'd solved their anxiety problems." Now, it could be placebo. We were having a quick chat outside earlier about placebo. We like placebo. If placebo works, take placebo pills. But that gave me a curiosity for why the different people, unrelated, were coming back and saying exactly the same thing, in fact using the same words. So we started to look at different blends and different types of CBD and different strains, but essentially we came up with a structure in which somebody can measure the CBD. It's very basic, and it's kind of a foundation of where we are now. We want to be able to help someone understand and have that verification of what it's not just a placebo, because a placebo it may run out in the end when you get used to it. So what we come up with a small, very basic system where we ask people to score their quality of life, and we're talking about sleep now. So if you have a poor night's sleep every night and you feel tired when you wake in the morning when it's time to get up, give that a score from 1 to 10. 10 being absolutely excellent and 1 being absolutely poor. So give yourself a quality of life score. And people were coming up with 2 or 3, and we're saying, okay, now what's your target? Where do you want to go? What would you feel like if you get to 7 or 8? Do you feel like you'd have achieved? So people would then score 6 or 7. And then we'd say every 7 days, once you've started your CBD journey, every 7 days, now just revisit and give yourself a score again. And after 21 days, then you've got something to track back. You've got some metric, very fundamental, very basic, but you've got a metric. And once we introduced that, we were having more and more communication with people, and people were coming back to us and reporting back, and we found that by providing a support structure that people were engaged. And it was a very different way of doing things, and it was a way and a communication that no one else was giving people. And it proved invaluable, to be honest, and people coming back and they had this way. And from that now we have this new system that allows us to, and it's very early stages, but it allows us to feed back from a biometric perspective. And we were talking a moment ago about the watches and the head devices. And it allows us not just to track with our quality of life scores, but it gives us sometimes absolute live and immediate feedback. But when it comes down to the CBD facts, we are not really allowed to claim CBD has facts. We can share stories and we can experience it ourselves, and when we have pains and when we have injuries, we take CBD. Some of it's topical, some of it's ingestible, some people vape it. But essentially, what we do know is that all CBD does is once it enters your body is to, and this is plant-based CBD that we take in, we call it phytocannabinoids. It awakens your endocannabinoid system. And that's a system within that was found about 20 years ago that produces cannabinoids and CBD itself, and they're called endo. So if you introduce phytocannabinoids into your body, the endocannabinoid system is awakened, and that then looks for homeostasis in your body. And then we start to have better and deeper sleep cycles. We start to have the repair mechanisms and the maintenance of the body. And already these are things that are giving your body and your day the ability to be optimized, and you're not going to have the bad sleep and the bad things that are associated with lack of sleep. They're going to begin to be managed. And people report back. I mean, we had one lady. She was in the quite a famous lady, celebrity, and she couldn't leave her house for 3 months. Before that, she was a PR and a manager for bands, and you'd see her on TV once or twice a week in magazines every Sunday, tabloids. But there was one period of her life where she couldn't leave the house for 3 months, and she met us. In fact, Peter and I met her together. She met us and asked if our product range would help. So we said, well, let's give it a try. And she said, well, if it does help, you know, you're going to change my life. And we're like, there's those words again, change my life. Well, 6 weeks later, she came back and she said, it's completely changed my life. And she is now one of our strongest advocates. She stands on stage and she'll talk about that day, that moment when she called us. And it's changed her life completely. And that's essentially CBD in terms of anxiety and stress. And I'm learning, and every day, as my dad always says, bless him, every day's a school day. So I'm learning. I've picked up some real key and gems of knowledge from you guys today, and we've only been speaking outside for 10, 15 minutes. And hearing you guys speak this evening, invaluable. But we're learning that we're all still very new on this journey, and it's really given us the motivation, knowing that what we're doing can help people, genuinely and really help people. And so from that, it's given us the ability to work together. And Peter and I met and decided that with the technology and bio, if we can bring those two things together and allow you guys to choose that state on demand, if we can marry the technology and the botanicals that we have, if we can bring those together with the sound, with the vibrations. And if you look around, secretly, there are some people in here that are going to be performing and practicing some very, very ancient arts later on, and they're going to be helping you guys achieve different states of mind. So just look around, and it could be the person sitting next to you, but later on you'll see them. They'll be up here. And we're bringing those things together to, yeah, I can see you smiling back there. Bring those things together to help achieve that management, that quality of life. And that's what we're all about.
And I think the goal for all of us is really to be able to explore through the conscious side of our brain and be aware of these benefits. During that brief discussion that we were having, we were talking about the importance and the value that technology brings through biometrics, but more than just biometrics. I mean, for us in the research lab, biometrics is really just validating whatever response that before was just done through a survey. And I have a quick audience question. How many of you, right, already? She already knows. Maybe that is working, we'll see. But how many of you do things that you shouldn't do, but you do it sometimes anyways, and come on, it's an all-room thing. Well, all of us are like that. And that is because we have a conscious effort to be aware that it's not good for us, but subconsciously, nope, that's not going to process. And that's why our body still gives in. So I think it's really important that we now take those biometrics and make that accessible for people engaging with technologies like yours and with products like yours, so that you can at least evaluate for yourself. Is there more change happening than what you're consciously aware of? And that's where we get back into the conversation of fake stress and real stress, anxiety and real stress, so that you can actually see some of these developments that we get to see on a computer screen, but you're not interested in seeing what has science backed and what hasn't. You're wanting to see results. So Peter, you were talking about how important that is for you guys to somehow provide people and customers in general the ability to measure up, if you will, to be able to see those changes. How do you project you're going to be able to do that when it can be individual? I mean, these products, we know the nutrients inside them, we know the chemical compositions of them, but everyone is more or less different. Our perception works differently. So how are you looking to reduce the gap of doubt?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So I think where the future is going, it's going to personalized medicine and personalized experience for everyone, because obviously we are all different. And if you measure this and have your data on the screen, then you could potentially map this as your personal state. And if you use technologies like machine learning and AI, and the more data you get, the more personalized approach you'll have to reach some state you want to reach. So I guess future is really about personalization of individual and how to get there, including let's say you want to take something so you go to sleep easily and you wake up energized, but how much I should take and what I should take. So with these biometrics, we could analyze even in real time what you actually need. Only things that scares me is all this data can be also very bad if it goes to wrong hands. So our algorithm is very early stage, and we're not allowed even to say anything about it or to kind of push it out, because regulators are now just drafting AI regulations, especially in the health tech. NHS is doing this as well. We're going that way, obviously. We want to be regulated, but for now we're just trying to experiment, and what we found is it really works. It works to that level that you can see your data on the screen, and you can see where you want to go, and you'll get there, and you'll see on the screen that you got there. So it is amazing.
Thank you. And I agree with you on the research part. I think it's crucial for any company, any brand, really unfolding some of these new ways of achieving mental well-being. We have to do the research. And while I'm going to be impartial to regulation, because I think policy changes whatever continent I'm in. But here in the UK, it's part of your system. And I think what's important to add to a pre-regulation state is really doing more research, because then we're really driving it with answers. We're really driving it with substantial answers. And Tom, I know that you love research. You use a lot of research in your work. But you also see a lot of gimmicks out there. And while I know the hard work that you do, and I know how much effort and review process goes for you on substantial academic research on sound specifically, you're having a lot of competitors or other individuals who claim things, and then when push comes to shove, we're kind of all put in that same pot. How do you see the evolution of research and how to disprove a lot of the gimmicks that are out there and further validate the positive efforts that are being made?
Well, I think this is crucial. And I think when the penny drops that really we're in this sort of unfiltered world right now, particularly in sound, I mean, I'm seeing so many extraordinary claims about particular practices, and I'm going to be sitting on the fence here because I've come from a background in obviously putting a piece of wood between my legs and resonating harmonically, creating beautiful sounds and frequencies, which uplifts, creates joy. Now, I know that playing a cello can deliver something wonderful. I also know the physics behind sound and vibration, and how literally a wave will actually make you vibrate harmonically, harmoniously. However, without any regulation, how can we really claim that, for example, I came across at the Mind, Body and Spirit Festival a couple of weeks back, a yurt inside Olympia, and a group of people all sort of sitting quite happily, being exposed to a guy with two beaters and a gong. And he was beating the living daylights out of it. I was thinking, you've just gone in there, paid some money, and you're accepting that something's going to happen to you. You don't know what, but you're going to come out and go, oh, something amazing happened. Well, do you really know what's going on? I mean, a gong creates an incredibly powerful spectrum of frequencies, and you have to be very careful about, what these frequencies are doing to you. There's some interesting research on gongs. I'm particularly interested in this area because I've had some wonderful experiences. There's a guy called Leo Kosandai, and he gently gonged me into a state of nirvana, and I absolutely loved it. Equally, seeing this room full of people, and I have on film a guy with his fingers in his ears going, "Help, get me out of here, this is scary." You know, we're on the edge of a whole new area here, and when you can pay sub £100 to go on a 4-hour course and come out being a qualified sound healer, that's worrying for me. You know, there's years and years of research in these kind of practices, and I have a friend who's trained for 6 years to use sound and frequency for, let's say, retuning the body. I think we just have to be careful about these claims, whether it's digital, acoustic, analog, whatever, how we're using sound responsibly and ethically. And that's why we need research to back it up. We need to kind of get these instruments into labs and to see what's going on. Let's get some EEG going on here. Let's see what's happening underneath biologically, physiologically. Yes, there are claims. Yes, there's some outcomes that are clearly positive, but we need to measure these now and then somehow have some regulation and avoid this sort of glut of sort of Instagram sound healers that are just literally just overtaking the world. I mean, it's the next
Maybe
pillar.
we can ask Jenny next year for some kind of EEG capture.
Yeah.
So while you're trying anything, you can maybe see if it's working or not working according to your biochemistry. I think, you know, when we talk about energy, I always go back to one of my biggest inspirations, and that's Isaac Newton. Sir Isaac Newton here, right? Newton described gravity and described energy to us perhaps more than anybody else, father of physics. But he really talked about two major rules with energy. And one of them I'm going to use for purpose of this example, but is that energy is never born and never dies. It only transforms. The same can be said with stress and mental health, anxiety. We can transform it to make positivity out of it, to make lives better out of it. And I think to close the panel, I'd like to go and embarrass each one of you, but I guess I'll let you guys embarrass yourselves. But this road hasn't been easy for us, for any of us. And I think what I'm so excited to be a part of this panel and this festival is because we have to find new creative ways to lift each other up, to remind ourselves to look up, and to remind others to look up as well. And I just wanted to go down, I guess, the line real quick and tell us about something you've had to overcome to get ahead with life.
Oh, totally unprepared for that.
Yeah, they weren't ready for this one.
I guess very recently I joined a really powerful movement, and unfortunately their primary goal was not quite what I believed it was, and it was about a transfer of some very precious knowledge, which I was really happy to share. And during the transfer, there was some strange things going on, which I found out about. So I was faced with completing this transfer, which would allow me to achieve one of my lifetime goals, or not, and kind of slap back and think, you know, and spit my dummy and say, I found out what you guys are trying to achieve, and it's not in line with what we set out to do. But it wouldn't be the right thing. So I overcome my, I guess, ego, my inner no, to continue on and hand over some really, really precious knowledge in order for this organization to essentially use that knowledge against against the greater good of that knowledge to make money. It was a money thing. But I believe that I was put in this group to hand that knowledge over. And what happens to that knowledge afterwards, that's the group. And I wanted to achieve my goals, and it was very difficult because I had the emotions and the anger to say, no, don't do this, you know, they only want what that, and I managed to overcome my inner no and hand that knowledge over, and it felt good. And I walked away when I did with my head held high, knowing that I've achieved my goal, and I wished them all the luck in achieving their goals. So that was tough, and that's raw. That's 48 hours old. So,
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you.
Well, for me to get ahead, it took becoming a dad and saying, hold on a minute, I'm getting back in at 4, 5 in the morning, and I've got to click instantly into dad mode and then do a school run. That's just not quite going to work. I mean, grumpy dad, dangerous dad. I mean, this was like a reality check. I cannot function without quality sleep. And I realized that a lot of things were being compromised. Fundamentally, it was being a dad. And I didn't want that to happen moving forward. So I had to make a very, very big decision. Shall I stay in the music industry, as in entertainment, staying up all night, keeping people raving? And I decided no. I decided that actually what I'd learned over the course of my career was that I was privileged to share music with people, observe how that music was affecting people, and could I then do something a bit more powerful, a bit more responsible with everything that I'd seen and observed, literally from, I remember a room, New Year's Eve, Tokyo. Now, Japanese tend not to emote very well. I played some music that literally made the majority of the room cry. And it made me feel like I've got a responsibility here. You know, this music is powerful stuff. I need to measure, I need to learn about what I'm doing with the music. Can I make better music to help people emote more? It started in the early 90s, creating ambient music. People were having babies to this for pain management. We've got stories claiming that this music helped me give birth. So my reality check was, okay, this could be easy. I could carry on touring the world, making stacks of cash, uplifting people, and then going on these journeys, taking things, etc., etc. But hold on a minute. Can I just help people more, be of more use, be of more service to mankind, and use what I'd learned to make transformational, purposeful, meaningful music content? And yeah, I took a big hit. It really hurts when you go from a lifestyle where it's like private jets and luxury accommodation. And you know what? It's been totally worth it, because to have one individual come up to you and say, thank you, you made a difference to my life, you've saved my life, that means everything to me. And when you've done that, there's no turning back. You just want to help more and you want to learn more. And so my curiosity has peaked massively. I've become more interested in the world of academia, immersing myself in that world, trying to learn as much as possible. I mostly read research papers now just to try and get to the bottom of what it is that I'm here to help people with. So that was it. It was the conversion from being an international DJ to dad mode, a bit more responsible dad, and making content to help people.
It's really good. I don't have such a strong thing, but I believe for one to get ahead must lose its head. So I had to lose my head. I moved from Serbia to UK, and I cut all my relationships to literally anyone I know, including family and friends, and I started a completely new life in the UK. So for me, that actually opened a lot of things. I could hear myself better, and then hear others better, had more empathy for others, and then kind of I lost, like James mentioned, ego dissolution. You know, I completely lost myself in order to find a new person that could actually have a purpose or a mission to kind of help others, to provide any tools that could also, open doors to different things for you to explore.